Hello, I'm the Doctor. Welcome to DoctorGeek. Today, we're continuing with Part 2 of the 11th Doctor Full Summary, so be sure to check out Part 1 if you haven't already, and be careful for spoilers, because there's going to be a lot of them. With that said, let's pick up where we last left off.
Months later, a desperate Amy and Rory create a crop circle to attract the Doctor's attention, and as he appears, their childhood friend Mel arrives, as she has been hearing stories of the Raggedy Doctor from Amy for nearly her entire life. In fact, they are so close that Amy named her daughter Melody after Mel's, who is currently on the run from the police after stealing a car. She takes out a gun and demands that the Doctor take her into the past so they can kill Hitler. While in the TARDIS, she shoots the console, causing them to crash in 1939 Berlin, inside Hitler's office, and inadvertently stop a futuristic, crude, justice-seeking, shape-shifting robot called the Tesselecta from killing Hitler. Hitler shoots at the Tesselecta, but misses, and hits Mel's instead. And after Rory locks Hitler in the closet, Mel's regenerates into River Song, revealing that Amy and Rory both grew up with their daughter as their friend, who has the power of regeneration due to her being conceived in the TARDIS. Since Melody was trained by her captors as a child to kill the Doctor, a brand new River Song begins to try to do just that, eventually kissing the Doctor and revealing that her lipstick is fatally poisonous after an hour. The Doctor uses the TARDIS to look for a cure while Amy and Rory go after River, and the Tesselecta follows them due to them having River listed as their most wanted criminal for being responsible for killing the Doctor at Lake Silencio. The Tesselecta brings Amy and Rory aboard as allies and attempts to attack River, but the Doctor appears and stops them. They inform him that River has been trained to kill him by a religious sect called the Silence, who believe silence will fall when the oldest question in the universe is asked, and they refuse to back down, which forces Amy to use the sonic screwdriver to turn the Tesselecta's security systems against the crew. The pawns are saved by River, who pilots the TARDIS into the Tesselecta, and when they return, the Doctor is near death. He whispers a message into River's ear, telling her to give it to River Song, and after he dies, River asks who River Song is, knowing herself only as Melody at this point. The Tesselecta shows her a hologram of herself, and realizing that she is the person the Doctor was speaking about, she gives up her remaining regenerations to save him, and passes out. The Doctor takes her to a hospital in the far future, and leaves her the TARDIS diary as a gift. Back on board the TARDIS, the Doctor reveals that he found the date of his death at Lake Silencio from the Tesselecta, but he doesn't tell this to Amy or Rory. The Doctor receives a message on his psychic paper from a frightened 8-year-old boy named Georgie, who wants to get rid of a monster in his bedroom. The Doctor decides to pay him a visit and poses as a social worker, finding George and learning that he has been scared all his life, and copes with it by being told to metaphorically put what he's afraid of into his wardrobe. Thinking he will find something horrible inside the wardrobe, the Doctor finds nothing but clothes in a dollhouse. Meanwhile, Rory and Amy find themselves transported inside the dollhouse, where life-size peg dolls chase them, eventually turning Amy into a doll. The Doctor realizes that there are no pictures and photo albums of George's mom being pregnant, and George's father, Alex, remembers that his wife couldn't have children. The Doctor realizes that George is an alien child who took the form of the couple's desired child and hid through a perception filter. George begins to panic, and the Doctor, Alex, and George are pulled into the dollhouse. The Doctor tells George to face his fears, and Alex tells his son that he loves him. They all end up back in the house back to normal, as George is no longer afraid. The Doctor takes the pawns to a vacation planet, but is unaware that it is suffering from a fatal plague that affects beings with 2 hearts. The native population has created places where those infected can live in an accelerated time stream, allowing them to live out their lives while in communication with their loved ones through a glass lens. Amy gets separated from Rory and the Doctor and gets trapped in one of these time streams, and when they find her through the lens, the Doctor tells Amy to wait for him there and to not let any of the planet's robots administer any medicine to her, as it would be fatal to a human. The Doctor and Rory lock onto Amy's time stream and arrive by TARDIS, but the Doctor can't go outside due to the plague and must send out Rory, who finds Amy and sees that she has aged 36 years since they last saw her. Realizing he has arrived at the wrong time stream, the Doctor pleads with the older Amy to help them retrieve her younger self, and while she is bitter and reluctant, she eventually agrees if the Doctor promises to save her as well, which she uneasily accepts, knowing the paradox that would cause. After bringing the younger Amy back to them, they race for the TARDIS, but the Doctor does not allow the older Amy on board, knowing that it would be impossible for both versions to exist in the same time stream. The older Amy says goodbye to Rory before allowing herself to finally be taken by the planet's robots. The TARDIS materializes in what appears to be a 1980s hotel, but the Doctor recognizes it as an alien structure. They meet 3 people, 2 humans, Rita and Howie, and an alien named Gibbous, each of whom were taken from their lives and found themselves here. They meet another human named Joe, who has succumbed to a madness that consumes everyone who gets trapped here, as each person is enticed to enter one of the many rooms that will contain their greatest fear. Afterwards, the people begin to repeat "praise him" until they are taken by a beast. The group traps the creature and the Doctor interrogates it, learning that it is in agony and waiting for its end, as the hotel is its prison. The Doctor finds a way to release the beast, and the hotel is revealed to be an automated prison spaceship that was feeding its prisoner with creatures of strong faith. The Doctor brings Amy and Rory back to London and gifts them a house and a car, believing that they will be safer if they are not traveling with him. 200 years later, the Doctor is on a farewell tour of all his friends, knowing that the time of his death is getting close. He stops in to visit Craig, who he met in the episode The Lodger, and drops in on his new home and baby Alfie. The Doctor notices a strange electrical disturbance and he decides to investigate, learning that the Cybermen are siphoning power to reactivate their spaceship and crew, which is buried beneath a department store. The Doctor and Craig are captured, and Craig begins to be converted into a Cyberman, but the sound of Alfie crying reverses his conversion, and the Cybermen, feeling Craig's repressed emotions, start to overload. The Doctor and Craig escape just before the ship explodes, and the Doctor says goodbye to Craig and prepares for his final trip in the TARDIS. Meanwhile, in the future, archaeologist River Song is recaptured by Madame Kavarian and forced into a spacesuit. The Doctor attempts to track down the Silence, seeking answers on his upcoming death, and he is led to his friend Dorian Maldivar, who tells him that the Silence are dedicated to averting his future, and he gives him a prophecy. On the fields of Trenzalore, at the fall of the 11th, when no living creature can speak falsely or fail to answer, a question will be asked, one that must never be answered, and silence must fall when the question is asked. The Doctor continues to put off going to Lake Silencio until he calls up his old friend the Brigadier and learns that he has passed away, at which point he accepts his fate. He meets with the Tesselecta crew and gives them the 4 invitations to mail out to the Pons, River, his younger self, and Canthan, and he makes his way to the events shown in The Impossible Astronaut. From the Doctor's view, we see that the astronaut is a younger version of River, but this time she drains the suit of its weapons system and does not kill him, stopping a fixed point in time. As a result, time becomes stuck and starts to disintegrate. All of Earth's history runs simultaneously at a fixed moment of 5:02 p.m. on April 22, 2011, and the Doctor is now a prisoner of the Holy Roman Emperor Winston Churchill in London. The Doctor is saved by Amy and a squad of soldiers, but though this Amy is aware of the altered timeline, she doesn't know that her squad captain, Rory, is her husband. Amy takes the Doctor to Area 52, where they have captured many of the Silence along with Madame Kavarian. River is here as well, but refuses to let the Doctor touch her, knowing that it would unfreeze time. Everyone here wears eye drives to allow them to remember the Silence after they look away from them, but soon the Silence begin to escape, as this was all a trap by Madame Kavarian, and the eye drives begin to overload, forcing them to remove them. But in revenge, Amy forces Madame Kavarian's eye drive back on, killing her. They escape to the roof where the Doctor pleads with River to put time right, but she refuses, not wanting to watch him die. However, after the Doctor whispers something in her ear, she finally agrees, and the two have a quick wedding ceremony before they kiss and fix time, letting things play out the way they should. Later, a sad Amy is visited by River, who comforts her at having to say goodbye to the Doctor, but she then reveals that when the Doctor whispered in her ear, he told her to look into his eye, as he was actually inside the Tesselecta, meaning that River didn't actually kill the Doctor at all. It was only the Tesselecta using its shape-shifting ability to make it appear that way. The Doctor is then seen paying another visit to Dorian, where he learns that the fields of Trenzalore are still waiting for him, and the question that must never be answered is hidden in plain sight. Doctor Who. Later, after the Doctor is helped by a woman named Madge Arwell and vows to return the favor, he comes to her years later, shortly before Christmas, posing as the caretaker of a home that they have evacuated to during World War II. The Doctor has come to help raise Madge's spirits, as she has just been told that her husband is missing in action, and she has not yet informed her children. The Doctor gives the children many gifts, with more to be opened on Christmas Day. But when one of the children opens a box early, he discovers a portal to a snow-covered forest, and discovering he's missing, the Doctor and the boy's sister follow him inside. The boy is captured by wood creatures who are trying to escape the planet through a living being, but they reject the boy as being too weak. Meanwhile, Madge discovers her children are missing and follows them through the portal, finding miners and holding them at gunpoint until they bring her to their excavation walker. They tell her the planet is due to be melted by acid rain in just a few minutes, and she pilots the walker to her children just in time. The wood creatures identify her as strong, and she accepts their life force and directs them away from the acid rain and into the time vortex. The Doctor tells her to focus on thoughts of her husband to find the way back, and she pulls them out of the time vortex and finds their home, with the wood creatures deciding to stay in the time vortex. After they land, Madge begins to explain her husband's death to her children, but suddenly, he shows up at the house, having followed the bright light of their life force through the time vortex to return to them. The family has a tearful reunion as the Doctor watches, and he turns down their offer of a Christmas dinner, instead deciding to visit Amy and Rory after 2 years, sharing Christmas with them. The Doctor, Amy, and Rory are summoned by the Daleks, who ask for their help. The Daleks have a planet they call the ASYLUM, where they keep their battle-damaged, insane, and uncontrollable Daleks, opting not to dispose of them since they view divine hatred as beautiful. A ship has crash-landed on their planet, damaging the shield around it that keeps the Daleks contained, and the Daleks want the Doctor to go to the planet and lower the shield completely so that they can cleanse the planet. Since the idea of insane Daleks roaming free scares even the Doctor, he agrees to help, and traces a signal coming from the planet to a girl named Oswald, who is the only survivor of the ship crash, who has been fending off the Daleks for a year. After they land on the planet, the Doctor, assuming that the Daleks will destroy the planet as soon as he deactivates the force field, plots an escape back to the Dalek ship, and Oswald agrees to deactivate the force field for him in return for him coming to rescue her. The Doctor moves through a room full of Daleks who have encountered him in the past, but Oswald saves him by wiping the Daleks' memory banks of his existence. The Doctor enters Oswald's chamber, but is horrified to find that she has been converted into a Dalek, although her mind has not yet been able to fully come to terms with that, and she still believes herself to be human. After this revelation, however, Oswald is briefly overcome by her Dalek personality and nearly kills the Doctor, before regaining control and fulfilling her promise to deactivate the force field. As he leaves, she tells him, "Run, you clever boy, and remember." The Doctor returns to Rory and Amy, and they teleport back to the TARDIS as the planet is destroyed. To the Doctor's surprise, when he arrives, the Daleks do not recognize him, as Oswald has truly erased him from their memory, and the Doctor happily dematerializes, dropping off Amy and Rory. 10 months later, the Doctor receives a call from the India Space Agency in 2367, and learns that a spaceship will crash into Earth in just 6 hours. Since he is already in ancient Egypt with Nefertiti, he takes her, along with the Edwardian explorer John Riddell, and quickly materializes around Rory and Amy, taking along Rory's dad Brian without even realizing. They materialize on the spaceship and find it full of dinosaurs, and they discover the ship is Silurian and left Earth 65 million years ago to escape the meteor impact that killed the dinosaurs. However, there are no Silurian currently on board. The ship's robots take them to the only human on board, a man named SNOWMEN, who raided the spaceship to steal the dinosaurs, having the robots murder all of the Silurians. He recognizes the value of Nefertiti and takes her to his own ship, but the Doctor rescues her and tricks the Indian Space Agency's missiles meant for the dinosaur ship to hit Solomon's ship instead, killing him. Rory and Brian pilot the ship away from Earth, and then the Doctor returns everyone back to their homes. The Doctor and the Ponds later arrive in an American frontier town called Mercy, and learn that no one is able to enter or leave the town because of a mysterious gunslinger who demands they turn over an alien scientist named Jex, who crashed to Earth a decade earlier. The townspeople rescued him, and in return, he gave them electricity and cured their cholera outbreak, so the town's marshal is hesitant to turn him over. The Doctor finds Jex's ship and learns that he was part of a team of scientists that did inhumane experiments to create cyborgs, one of whom is the gunslinger now seeking revenge. and an angry doctor returns to town and drags Jex to face the gunslinger. But the marshal pushes Jex out of the way and takes a lethal shot from the gunslinger, making the doctor the marshal of mercy with his last breath. The gunslinger leaves, promising to be back the next day for Jex. But moved by the marshal's sacrifice, the doctor and the townspeople help Jex escape. As Jex reaches his ship, he finally faces justice and self-destructs. With no further purpose, the gunslinger prepares to self-destruct as well, but the doctor convinces him to stand watch over Mercy as the new marshal. Sometime later, one random day, billions of small black cubes appear all over Earth, and the doctor arrives
as he, Amy, and Rory are visited by the commander of unit, Kate Stewart, daughter of Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, who explains that they can't determine the function of the cubes.
After many days, the doctor decides the cubes are harmless and leaves. But a year later, when humanity has forgotten about the cubes, they begin to activate, showing a countdown timer. And when they reach 0, they open, appearing empty, but causing a third of humanity to be killed by cardiac arrest. They find that the boxes emitted a signal that traces back to 7 sites across the globe, one of which is the hospital where Rory works. And while there, Rory discovers the elevator is a portal to a ship in Earth's orbit, and he is soon joined by Amy, Brian, and the doctor. The doctor is confronted by a hologram of the Shakri, who are self-appointed pest controllers of the universe. They have released the cubes to wipe out humanity and prepare to send out more, but the doctor reverses the cube's function, sending a signal that brings those harmed back to life. Feedback from this causes the ship to explode as the 4 escape safely. As Earth recovers, the doctor prepares to leave alone, but Brian insists that he take Amy and Rory along with him. Enjoying a picnic in Central Park in the year 2012, Rory leaves to get some coffee and somehow gets sent back in time to the 1930s where he meets River Song. In the present, the doctor and Amy are shocked to find Rory in the book the doctor is reading, realizing it was written by River in the past. Amy wants to read ahead, but the doctor warns against this, as that will make the future events destined to happen. Meanwhile, Rory and River are captured by a Mr. Grail, who has a weakened weeping angel imprisoned at his home, and River uses her vortex manipulator to send a signal to the doctor, allowing him to find and save her. However, Rory has disappeared, and they track him to a nearby apartment building. As they arrive to get him, they all walk into a room containing an elderly version of Rory just as he dies, making it destined to happen, and meaning that Rory will soon get sent back in time again by an angel, as they have been using this building as a farm to feed off of time energy. Rory and Amy refuse to accept that fate, however, and they jump off the roof as the angels converge on them, creating a paradox that resets the future. The Doctor, Amy, River, and Rory suddenly find themselves in a graveyard back in 2012, with Rory's plan evidently working. But as they prepare to leave, Rory sees a tombstone with his name on it, and is quickly sent back in time by an angel. Due to the paradox created, the Doctor is unable to go back in time to get him, and Amy allows herself to be sent back in time by the same angel so she can be with him, causing her name to appear on the tombstone next to his. The distraught Doctor is comforted by River, and he realizes that there may be a message from her in the book that they've been reading. Racing back to their picnic spot, he reads the last page, which is an afterword written by Amy, explaining that she and Rory lived a good and happy life, and asking the Doctor to visit her childhood self to assure her that he will come back for her to take her on amazing journeys. Heartbroken after losing Amy and Rory, the Doctor parks the TARDIS above Victorian London and uses his friends, Strax, Madame Vastra, and Jenny from A Good Man Goes to War to keep people away from him. When a barmaid named Clara Oswald runs into the Doctor, she follows him to his coach, and they are soon surrounded by evil snowmen. The Doctor realizes that Clara's thoughts are creating the snowmen, and he instructs her to imagine them melting, which works. The Doctor reluctantly allows Clara to leave, and she follows him to his TARDIS, but she runs away after knocking on the door. Clara goes to her other job as a governess for 2 children, and learns that one of them has been having nightmares of their old governess coming back from the dead. Realizing the pond where the old governess died is still the only thing frozen, she goes to Madame Vastra to try and get a hold of the Doctor, and when asked for one word to impress the Doctor, Clara answers, "pond," which arouses the Doctor's interest. Acting on a tip, the Doctor visits the Great Intelligence Institute and meets Dr. Simeon, who possesses a large glass globe full of psychic snow. The Doctor speaks to his old foe, the Great Intelligence, and learns that it plans to use the frozen body of the governess to form an ice creature that will retain its form and never melt. While Clara puts the children to bed, the ice governess breaks into the house and attacks them, but the Doctor fights her off, joined by Vastra, Jenny, and Strax. The Doctor and Clara escape to the TARDIS, but the governess grabs Clara and pulls her off the cloud, causing her to fall back to Earth. The Doctor puts Clara under the medical care of Strax and goes back to confront Simeon, using a memory worm to wipe his mind. While the Great Intelligence is strong enough to take over Simeon's body, his power ultimately wanes and he is defeated. They return to Strax and learn that Clara will not make it. At her funeral, the Doctor reads her full name on her tombstone and sees that her middle name is Oswin, making her the same girl he met in Asylum of the Daleks. He bids his friends farewell and makes his way to the TARDIS, eager to investigate and find Clara. One day, while the Doctor is at a monastery in 1207, his TARDIS phone starts to ring, and Clara, a new version of Clara, is on the other end and looking for help connecting her computer to Wi-Fi, for some reason believing the number that she called to be a computer helpline. The Doctor tracks her location and shows up moments later, delighted that he has found her once again, though she is completely unaware of who he is. The Doctor leaves briefly to change clothes, and when he returns, he finds a robotic server uploading Clara's personality into a computer. The Doctor halts the upload and successfully reverses it, sending a message to whoever is responsible that Clara is under his protection. The head of the uploads, Miss Kislet, informs her client that the Doctor has interfered, and they send a plane to descend towards them. The Doctor and Clara use the TARDIS to land on the plane and save it from crashing before taking the TARDIS to the next morning. They go to a cafe, and Clara uses newly acquired computer skills she received from her upload to find the location of the uploaders. However, while the Doctor is distracted, they manage to successfully upload Clara. An enraged Doctor uses a motorcycle to race towards the uploader's location, and once there, demands that they release Clara, along with all the other minds. When Miss Kislet refuses, the Doctor traps her in her own network, forcing her to order the release of everyone. Once released, Miss Kislet contacts her client, the Great Intelligence, to tell him what happened, and he orders her to wipe everyone's memory, including her own, reducing her to the mentality of a small child. The Doctor takes Clara home and offers her a chance to travel with him, which she initially refuses, before telling him to come back tomorrow. The Doctor takes Clara to a place called the Rings of AKHATEN, a system of 7 worlds orbiting the same star, with one possessing a golden pyramid, a holy site. They go to a giant marketplace, and Clara learns that they do not use currency here, but instead trade items of sentimental value. Clara gets separated and runs into a little girl named Mary, who is an important part of an upcoming ritual and is afraid to get it wrong. But Clara comforts her and she heads to the ceremony. The Doctor and Clara attend as well, and the Doctor explains that a song has been constantly sung to keep an angry god asleep, who the people call Grandfather. If he awakens, he will consume the entire universe. Or so they believe. Mary begins to sing, and a mummy inside the pyramid begins to awaken. A light from the pyramid draws her to it, and the Doctor and Clara chase after her in a space bike. The mummy tries to eat Mary, but the Doctor tells her she doesn't have to sacrifice herself, and he allows her to escape. But when the mummy breaks free, a ray of light strikes the star, and the Doctor realizes that he's made a mistake, as the mummy was only the alarm clock, revealing that Grandfather is AKHATEN itself, a star-sized parasitic monster. The Doctor sends Clara and Mary away and takes on AKHATEN, allowing it to feed on his memories. But when even they are not enough to satisfy its appetite, Clara returns to help him, and offers AKHATEN a leaf that brought her parents together, and thus created her, containing an infinite amount of untold potential. AKHATEN becomes overwhelmed by the infinite potential in the leaf and implodes, saving the system. The Doctor and Clara next end up on a Soviet submarine in 1983, despite aiming for Las Vegas. While on board, they encounter an ice warrior, Grand Marshal Skaldek, who has just defrosted from a block of ice. The Doctor encourages the crew to be peaceful towards him, but the ship's executive officer knocks Skaldek out with a cattle prod. Knowing that he will desire vengeance, the Doctor has the crew tie him up, but when he wakes, he sends a distress call to his people so they can find him. The Doctor tells Skaldek that he has been frozen for 5,000 years, but that his people still exist, but Skaldek believes he is the only ice warrior left. He leaves his armor and escapes, killing 3 members of the crew, and he plans to use the sub's nuclear missiles to provoke nuclear war and destroy humanity, in revenge for the humans attacking him. He is able to activate the missiles, but as they try to persuade Skaldek to show mercy, a tractor beam grabs the sub, and it's revealed that the Ice Warriors have arrived for Skaldek, who teleports onto their ship and deactivates the missiles. The two next arrive in 1974, where Professor Alec Palmer and his psychic assistant Emma Grayling are collecting photographic evidence of a ghost they have summoned. The Doctor shows interest in their investigation, and Clara points out that the ghost appears in the same position on each photograph they take. On a hunch, the Doctor uses the TARDIS to take a picture of the exact spot that they are in multiple times throughout history, and discovers that the ghost is actually a pioneer time traveler named Hila Tekorian, who is stuck in a pocket dimension where time is moving very slowly. Since he cannot use the TARDIS to access the pocket dimension, he uses a crystal from Metebelis 3 to enhance Emma's psychic powers and open a rift into it. The Doctor travels through this and finds Hila, who is being chased by a creature who follows them both. Hila manages to escape the rift, but it then closes, trapping the Doctor. However, he is able to escape when she reopens it once again. Later, the TARDIS gets caught in the magnetic tractor beam of a salvage ship, which damages it and throws the Doctor and Clara into darkness. The Doctor wakes up on the salvage ship and tries to convince the crew, Gregor, his brother Bram, and an android named Tricky, who they treat poorly, to help him rescue Clara. They agree in return for the rights to salvage the TARDIS, but when they enter, the Doctor ensures their cooperation by locking the doors and setting the self-destruct countdown. They decide to split up, but the brothers double back and begin to salvage parts of the TARDIS. But when Gregor removes a key part, the TARDIS begins to reconfigure itself to prevent him from taking more, and Gregor tells Bram to abort the salvage since the TARDIS is alive. However, Bram doesn't listen and is soon killed by an unknown creature. Meanwhile, Clara wakes up inside the TARDIS and tries to find the console room, also running into strange creatures who she tries to hide from in different rooms. Once everyone reunites with Clara, the Doctor realizes the TARDIS's engines are damaged, and they must get to the engine room through the Eye of Harmony before it explodes. When Tricky is injured en route, Gregor reveals that he is actually human and his other brother, and the Doctor is disgusted at his treatment of Tricky. In the Eye of Harmony, they are confronted by the strange creatures, and the Doctor tells them that they are actually versions of themselves from the future that they must prevent from happening. But the creatures get Tricky and Gregor. The Doctor and Clara flee to the engine room and find that they have already exploded, but the TARDIS has put them into stasis. The Doctor realizes that they must go back to the point of disaster and activate a magnetic beacon to stop everything from going wrong, and the Doctor crosses through a time rift to give his past self the beacon, which he uses to reset time. Back in 1893, Strax, Madame Vastra, and Jenny are asked to investigate the Crimson Horror, a mysterious cause of death that causes its victims to have bright red skin. They are shocked to find that the retina of the latest victim has retained the last image that they saw, the Doctor. They travel to a utopian community called Sweetville and discover that the Doctor is chained up with red skin. Jenny puts him into a chamber to restore him, and he explains that he and Clara were investigating and learning that the members of Sweetville were being preserved to survive the apocalypse, but since he was not human, the process did not work on him. They find a preserved Clara and manage to reverse the process for her as well, and Vastra realizes that Sweetville is using the venom of a prehistoric red leech that was a pest to her people. The Doctor and Clara confront the leader, Mrs. Gillyflower, who reveals that she plans to use a rocket to poison the world so that only the perfect people that she has preserved will survive to create a better world. Mrs. Gillyflower launches the rocket, but Vastra and Jenny manage to remove the poison, making it inert. As Mrs. Gillyflower turns on the Doctor, Strax appears and shoots her, and she dies from her injuries. As Clara returns home, the two children that she babysits for confront her with historic photos that she is in, and they demand that she take them with her on her time travel adventures. The Doctor takes Clara and the two kids, Angie and Artie, to Hedwig's World of Wonders, an extraterrestrial theme park, but the park is closed down and under military occupation. They meet a man named Webley hiding from the troops, and he shows them his collection of oddities, including a deactivated Cyberman head. He tells them the Cybermen were exterminated 1,000 years ago, and challenges them to defeat a Cyberman that he has converted into a chess-playing machine, but there turns out to be a chess expert inside named Porridge. As they prepare to leave, the Doctor becomes interested in small insects, later known as cybermites, the upgraded version of the cybernats. When the cybermites resurrect the Cybermen, the children are partially converted, and the military becomes very concerned, since the last time the Cybermen were defeated, they had to resort to destroying an entire galaxy full of trillions of people. When the Doctor goes after the children, he too is partially converted, and he must share his mind with the cyber programming, which calls itself Mr. Clever. The Doctor and Mr. Clever decide to play a game of chess for control of the Doctor's body, and when the Doctor bluffs that he can win the match in just 3 more turns, Mr. Clever uses the entire Cybermen's shared consciousness to work out the impossible problem, which temporarily stops the Cybermen's advance. The Doctor uses a hand pulsar to remove Mr. Clever for good, and after they realize that Porridge is actually the Emperor of the galaxy, they teleport to his ship and he orders the destruction of the planet, killing the Cybermen. After hearing information concerning the Doctor, Madame Vastra, along with Jenny, makes contact with the Centauran Strax, Clara in the present, and the consciousness of River Song inside the library. Vastra repeats what she has heard, that the Doctor has a secret that he will take to the grave, and it is discovered, along with providing them space-time coordinates that will lead to the Doctor's greatest secret. However, as they talk, faceless humanoids called Whispermen attack them, and River tries to get everyone to wake up before the Whispermen enter their meeting and tell Clara to tell the Doctor that his friends are lost forevermore unless he goes to Trenzalore. When she wakes, Clara tells the Doctor what transpired, and he decides that he must go to Trenzalore, the planet that holds his future gravesite. They arrive on the planet full of tombstones, and make their way to the remains of the TARDIS, which has gotten enormous as it's deteriorated. They arrive to find the Great Intelligence is back and holding Jenny, Vastra, and Strax hostage unless the Doctor speaks his name to unlock the TARDIS doors. He refuses, but a telepathically linked River says it for him, opening the TARDIS doors, and revealing a column of light that makes up the Doctor's time stream. The Great Intelligence enters the time stream in order to undo the Doctor's past as revenge for his past defeats, forcing the Doctor to suffer despite knowing that it will destroy him. As the Doctor's past begins to unravel, Jenny, who was once saved by the Doctor, disappears, and Strax reverts to being evil, which forces Vastra to kill him. To save the Doctor, Clara decides to enter his time stream as well, ripping herself into millions of pieces as she interacts with the Doctor in his past adventures, with all of his previous incarnations. Jenny and Strax are returned to normal, and the Doctor decides to go in after Clara to save her. But after he finds her, and they prepare to leave, they see another figure standing in the shadows, and it is revealed that the Doctor has been hiding an incarnation of himself out of shame, the War Doctor. Seeing this, the Doctor and Clara leave. Apparently unharmed by the events of the last episode, Clara joins the Doctor in the TARDIS before it is lifted by helicopter and taken to UNIT. Kate Stewart informs them that Time Lord paintings that were for some reason being housed in the National Gallery appear to have been broken from within, and the figures previously in the paintings are now gone. While they examine the paintings, a time fissure appears and the Doctor jumps through it, winding up in his personal past with the 10th Doctor and Queen Elizabeth, who the 10th Doctor suspects of being a Zygon. They are soon joined by the War Doctor through another time fissure, and the three Doctors are imprisoned by Queen Elizabeth in the Tower of London. Meanwhile, Clara and Kate learn that Zygons were hiding in the paintings and have now emerged, impersonating UNIT soldiers so they can steal UNIT technology to take over the Earth. To stop this, Kate Stewart locks down UNIT's Black Archive and starts a countdown that will detonate a nuclear device below the archive. The three Doctors escape the tower, but are unable to take the TARDIS to the Black Archive. Instead, they too use the Zygon's plan, and hide in a portrait of Gallifrey that has been moved to the Black Archive as well. They use the Black Archive's mind-wiping equipment to make both sides, Zygon and human, unaware of who is who, which allows them to stop the countdown and fairly negotiate a peace treaty. With peace achieved, the War Doctor goes back to Gallifrey to end the Time War, and the 10th and 11th Doctors follow him to share his burden. But Clara challenges them to make a better decision, and they use stasis technology to freeze the entire planet of Gallifrey in a single moment in time, creating a pocket universe. As Gallifrey disappears, the surrounding Dalek warships destroy themselves with their crossfire, wiping themselves out. Knowing that he will be unable to remember what really happened, the War Doctor says goodbye to his future selves, content that he made the right decision. The 10th Doctor follows him out, but the 11th Doctor sticks around to admire the painting of Gallifrey in the National Gallery, and he is soon joined by the museum's curator, who is heavily implied to be a future version of the Doctor, as he looks exactly like the 4th Doctor, although aged up about 40 years. The curator tells the Doctor that the painting is called Gallifrey Falls No More, and he inspires the Doctor to someday find Gallifrey, a dream he only just recently learned was even achievable. Later, the Doctor is among thousands of ships orbiting a planet, as an untranslatable message is being broadcast throughout time and space. Looking for answers, the Doctor collects Clara from her Christmas dinner and takes her to the Papal Mainframe, a space church where the Silents are based, and led by an assumed lover of the Doctor, Mother Superior Tasha Lem. Tasha tells him that they have created a force field around the planet to prevent people from landing there, but she gives the Doctor the chance to go down himself and find the source of the message. On the planet, they find a settlement called Christmas, where a truth field prevents everyone from lying, and they find the message coming from yet another crack in space-time, just like in Amy's room. The Doctor's new companion, Handles, a severed Cyberman head, tells him that the message is Gallifreyan, and is repeating two words over and over: Doctor Who. The Doctor assumes the Time Lords are trying to escape their pocket universe and are using his name as a sort of password, as confirmation that they have arrived in the correct universe. However, knowing their return would start a new time war, the Doctor is hesitant, and Tasha tells him that she will destroy the planet to prevent another time war should the Time Lords come back. Upon learning that the planet they are on is actually Trenzalore, the Doctor decides to trick Clara into going into the TARDIS, and he sends her home like he did to Rose in Bad Wolf. However, Clara immediately jumps onto the TARDIS before it can dematerialize, and because of this, it takes 300 years for it to return for the Doctor, who is visibly aged in this time. The Doctor tells Clara that his body is out of regenerations, and he knows that he will die here. Managing to trick her once again, Clara is sent back home a second time, and this time, the TARDIS succeeds in returning without her. But a few hours later, she hears it come back, this time piloted by Tasha, who brings her back to Trenzalore to see the Doctor one last time, centuries after the last time they spoke, as she does not want the Doctor to die alone. The Doctor knows he can no longer stop the constant attacks, and after saying goodbye to Clara, he goes out to face the Daleks one last time. But Clara, moved to tears, begs the Time Lords to help the Doctor, and the crack closes before reappearing in the sky above the Doctor. Regeneration energy then flows from it and into the Doctor, giving him a brand new set of regenerations. The Doctor uses the excess regeneration energy to destroy the Daleks, and the crack finally closes. As Clara returns to the TARDIS, she finds the Doctor young again, but he explains that his youthful appearance is just a reset before his new regeneration. And after a heartfelt goodbye to Clara, he quickly regenerates into the 12th Doctor, and begins to complain about the color of his kidneys. So, that was my speed run summary of the 11th Doctor's tenure in the TARDIS. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for new videos every week. And be sure to check out my other videos, including Doctors 1 through 10, with 12 coming soon. Let me know what you'd like me to cover next in the comments down below, and as always, thank you for being my companion on this journey today. I'm the Doctor. Bye for now.